Welcome to the Single Parent Podcast. I'm your host, Natalie. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for watching the Single Parent Podcast, where we not only come together to discuss the ups and downs, ins and outs of single parenthood, but how we could support one another along the way in order to develop and maintain healthy relationships. Man, I want to talk about how when our kids, can tend to make mistakes, I feel like it's my failure, and it's been hard because, again, I've spoken about this before. I've pretty much changed my parenting style recently in the past 5 years or so, I would say, and it has not been easy to go from a traditional yelling, discipline, in some cases spanking, that's what we were taught back in the days, in the 90s, early 2000s, and especially growing up in church, you're told, spare the rod, spoil the child. But what we didn't get from that scripture was that the rod just really indicated guidance for our kids. It had nothing to do with beating your child and everything to do with being the person that guides your child in the right directions throughout their lives. And the fact of the matter is that we can't control our kids, nor can we control any decisions that they make. The fact of the matter is we can't even control ourselves, let alone anybody else. And that twisted way of thinking is really what got us into a lot of trouble, and again has repeated cycles of trauma throughout generations. Before we continue, please do me a favor, especially if you're enjoying the topics that we're talking about. Please take a moment to subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Single Parent Podcast. You'll see a logo like that as the photo. Thank you so much again. Your support is much appreciated. It's been really interesting to kind of change my parenting style. And especially so because, for example, when my 23-year-old, he was already an adult when I started changing my parenting style. And he was really caught off guard with a lot of it. And there's been some disagreements in our households about, like, oh my God, you didn't do that, with me, or you didn't allow me to do that. And he'll point things out that I do a little bit differently when it comes to his brother and his sister. And I get it. I think I definitely felt the same way as an older child, looking back and telling my mom, excuse me, you ain't do that with us. You ain't do that with me. Because I do also have a younger sister that's actually 24. So, my younger sister and my oldest son are 9 months apart. So we have a lot of interesting dynamics throughout our family and our generations, especially when it comes to things like that. I think that's also made it a little bit difficult. Being a teen mom, I learned so much. I didn't realize at the time that I would. At that time, I was told my life was over. At that time, I thought I was going to hell. So, it was really, looking back, I'm so proud of the decisions that I made, regardless of how it was viewed in the church or how it was viewed in society at that time. I'm really grateful for the experience that I had. And I'm so glad that, I was and am able to be the best mom that I can be to my kids now. And that's really because I'm choosing to be, right? I went through my phase of feeling like I had to sacrifice all for my kids in order to be the best parent, right? Because that's what you're told. A good mom sacrifices for their kids, and they'll go without and they'll starve and all of that. But I'm learning that a hungry and cranky mama don't make for a good mom in the long run. Just kind of breaking and taking away those ways of thinking down and away, and doing away with them, some of them, right, completely, because it was ridiculous that we really were told that in order to be a great mom, you have to be run down and you got to be washed up and you got to, give up all your hopes and dreams for your kids. Especially as your kids get older and you see how in the end, especially if you get a good kid, especially if you get somebody that grows up to be a healthy human being, they will take control of their own lives, regardless of what you say. And you can be upset with that, but the fact of the matter is, for your child, that is such an awesome thing for them to do. I was having a conversation with my now 17-year-old son, and that's a lot of what he's saying recently is, Mom, I'm about to be a young man, and there's certain things I need to start doing, and there's certain responsibilities that I'm gonna have and I need to have and I need to start taking, and I'm so grateful for that, because I know that his realization of that, number one, I'm glad has that realization on his own. I'm glad that I didn't have to force that on him. I think that it's also because he's seeing the other healthy men around him and how they react, how they behave, how they take accountability and responsibility in their everyday lives, that I guess, it's been modeled to him, and he wants to take that initiative. And I'm really happy about that, because I've said this before, I can't help my son be a young man. I can't help him be no man. I can't usher him into that. I know nothing about it. And so I feel like what has helped me as a mom with a young man, growing up to be a young man, a young boy growing up to be a young man, is that I've allowed him to give him that space and that mental space to really make his own decisions and understand, okay, you made a mistake, or you didn't make the right decision here. What can we do better? How can we not end up in this situation again? And because you know what, at the end of the day, certain things just aren't meant to be for our kids, whether it's education, whether it's a job, whether it's a career, whether it's a, business opportunity, everything is not for them. But we also are not the people that are going to be able to tell them what is for them. Although we may think we are, we're not. All we can really do as the guide and the rod in our children's lives is to help them figure that out. I don't try to give my kids the answers. All I do is try to push them to make the best decision for themselves. As long as they can sleep well at night with the decision that they made, that's all that matters. I can't tell them that. I can't give them that. And those are the conversations that I've had with my older kids, especially over the years. And I think that also, parenting boys versus girls, there's a lot with that. There's a lot of differences with that. And as a mom, I'm learning to, have my place in both of those types of parenting, right? My boys need me in one way, and my daughter needs me in different ways. Learning that has been a little bit challenging, but I'm glad that I'm understanding that my kids are all different, and they need to be treated as such. It's been, when my kids make mistakes, I feel like I'm failing. When my kids do something that gets them in trouble in some way or lands them in a place that they have to now figure out what they have to do. I was so used to yelling and either yelling, disciplining, punishing, ignoring, making that I'm mad at what you did, taking my love away from you. Those were the type of parenting techniques that I knew for these type of situations. And now what I'm learning is that I'm so proud, number one, of how I reacted to, one of my kids' most recent mess ups. But again, I feel so less stressed. I feel so less, yelling and screaming and doing all that. It just creates health issues that you don't really need. And on top of that, it doesn't really resolve anything. Yeah, your kids know they're upset with you. Yeah, they feel it for that moment. But again, the fact of the matter is, this is their life. And I think also having them understand that mistakes happen. Like, that shit is normal. And it's going to happen. What you do after that is what really matters. That's what's going to set the tone. I don't want to make my kids feel like a complete failure when they do things that, land them in a not so great position. Because again, my kids can probably point out 50 million things that I did wrong. And I give them the right to do that, actually. Newsflash, I do. I allow my kids to put me in check sometimes, respectfully. But put me in, but I think I seen you do, X, Y. I mean, they don't do that. I'm just saying, there has been times where my kids have pointed things out to me and I've had to accept it and I've had to take responsibility and I had to work on changing it moving forward. So I'm now feeling like when they do make mistakes or they do land themselves in positions where, they have to reevaluate their circumstances, now I'm just guiding them through it. Okay, sweetie, well, I'm disappointed, but what do you need to do now? What should be your next steps? Pushing my children to more so, because I'm not stressing myself out. I'm not giving myself a heart attack. Not going to do it. An aneurysm, not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. It's your life. You have to take control of it. And the older they get, the less control I try to have over anything. I try to take away a little bit more, mothering, I guess you could say, because I feel like, it's time and it's been a little hard to, accept that. But I think for the sake of my kids, I'm definitely just going to continue to push them into just like understanding themselves first and foremost. Like I said to my son, I said, listen, you're still young. You ain't got no kids yet. All you got to do is worry about you, get you a job, finish school, figure out what you actually have the ability to think clearly without the constant need to worry about somebody else's well-being. And how are you going to provide for this person, What a blessing it is to only worry about you. So I'm trying to also, in the times where they make mistakes or, take a couple steps back in their lives, focus on the positive. Like, what do you have good in this situation? What advantages do you still have? What connections have you made? What have you learned? Because I was speaking to somebody the other day about this. We often get in points in our lives where we're so down on ourselves and we're like, oh my God, how did I do this? Like, how did I land myself in this position? But what you're not realizing is that you've learned something from it. And every difficult moment serves a purpose in your life, right? It's trying to teach you something. While we may have thought this job was going to last forever, while we may have thought that relationship was going to last forever, while we may have thought this person was going to be on this earth forever, and now it's no longer, we have to adjust. We have to figure out, what were the good things about those moments and those people that I could take with me forever? Because it happened for a reason. Those people connected with us for a reason in this world. You just have to hold on to that. You have to remember that. You have to get something out of everything in your life. Because if not, you're not living the way you should be. Everything that happens in our lives is for a reason. So when you look at it, granted, this job, I don't have it. But you know what? I still have this friend, though. I still have this connection, though. I still have this skill that I learned from that situation, from that job, from that relationship, from that person. No matter how bad it was, I learned something. Or I got something out of that connection and that relationship and situation that you can forever be grateful for. And so, again, I'm also being grateful for my children, no matter how many mistakes they make. And trust me, I right now, the news that I received about, one of my kids, I would be furious. Like, if this was like years ago, I would be furious. And I'm so glad that I'm not, because I was able to have a calm conversation with my son and let him know that I still love him. That's what unconditional love is. It's not just knowing, oh my God, my mom loves me unconditionally, my dad loves me unconditionally. But it's seeing that no matter what I do, my mom still accepts me. She understands that I made a mistake, not intentionally, because I'm a human, but I did. And it messed up something in my life, but she has the faith in me to still believe that I could still do good regardless. And that's all I ever wanted my kids to feel. And it just feels so good to get to this place where I can finally show that. And you know how they say, oh, you know, if you want your child to tell you things, you can't react, or you got to learn how to react. And that's true. But that takes time. That is not easy. To change your way of parenting has been the hardest thing I've done. One of the hardest things that I've done in my life. But I think it's so worth it because I feel like it's grown me and my children closer together. And there's a lot still, you know, that I need to work on and that I'm hoping to work through with them individually and collectively. But I know that the little steps that I'm making is going to definitely, you know, lead to that. And just give our family better outcomes. I was just so tired of screaming, so tired of punishing, so tired of being mean. And I wanted to be able to show my kids love no matter what in their lives. And I'm glad I'm able to do that. Definitely started with me. Had to give that love to myself first. And once I was able to do that, I was able to see my kids and see me. And every time I deal with them, I say to myself, if I was my kid right now, what would I want my mom to say? What would I want her to do? How would I want her to make me feel in this situation? Even though I know I may have messed up, even though I know that, you know, I did something stupid, I made a wrong decision, how would I want her to react? And it's really helped me, honestly. And so now it's like to a point where, you know, things will happen and it's like my first initial thought is let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. And I really try to listen more. I definitely try to listen more rather than talk at you know what you did and why would you? And then, you know, my son is smart. My sons and my daughter are very smart. And I'm learning to let them speak a little bit more. Even my daughter the other day, you know, it was something that was bothering me that she was doing and I couldn't figure out why. Like I thought it was something that I did wrong to her. And she said to me, she said, no, Mom, you didn't do anything wrong to me. She said, sometimes I just have big feelings and I don't know how to express them. And I was just like, whoa, I could not believe that my daughter really said something so intelligent like that. But I do understand that, you know, a lot of it has to do with the way in which I'm opening up to my kids and I'm showing them, you know, how to communicate with other people, other adults when we're outside. You know, it's not easy getting on these New York City buses and trains. My kids have seen me in a lot of situations where I am not nice because, you know, sometimes you can't be nice in the city. There's things that happen on the New York City buses and trains that are horrible, and I have to stand up for myself. So, you know, in those situations where I have to be that, I also explain that to them, and I say, especially to my daughter, you know, Lele, you know, Mommy didn't mean to behave that way, but I want to protect us at all times, and I want to make sure that we're okay, you know. And if there's a situation where I was wrong, you know, cop to it. Like, Mommy, you shouldn't have did that. I shouldn't have said that. That was not nice. I'm going to try. And the key word is try. You know, we also can't continue behaving the same ways with our children and around our children, you know, and not at least try to change it and improve upon it. But, you know, it's interesting because I feel like I'm not the only person who has decided to change their parenting style, you know, in the middle of being a parent, so to speak, right? If you are someone who, you know, you're trying to change your parenting style, whether, you know, your child is still little, and good luck to you because you still got a lot of time. That's the perfect time to do it. Excuse me. Or whether your child or your children are grown and, you know, you see it's going to be difficult. Maybe you don't even think you're going to be able to change your parenting style because it might be too late. Don't think that. Trust me, life is a journey. And I think the best thing my kids ever saw me do was change the type of parent that I was. Because I'm hoping that it taught them that no matter what, no matter stage you are in your life, if you want to improve upon something in your life, especially that's going to affect others around you in a positive way, it's never too late. I've seen people go back to school in their 50s, 60s to get their high school GED, and I commend them. Like, that is so big of somebody to humble themselves and do something like that. And, so just like those people, there is time in your life to change something if you don't like the way that it is. I just did not like the type of parent that I was becoming at one point. And I'm so grateful that I'm now able to say, you know what? I wanted to change that, and that's exactly what I did. And I'm still changing, still evolving. And we always will, right? I think parenting will evolve too within the next few generations. I'm sure of it, right? It's just being in the now is so important with your kids. You'll appreciate them more. You'll be more grateful. Everything don't gotta be perfect. Don't ever feel like everything gotta be perfect. I've been there. Even to this day, I feel like everything has to be perfect, because as a parent, it's like you want the best for your kids. You want them to have as much money as they can have. You want them to have the best of things. You want them to experience everything. But what's the most important thing? You're there with them. And when you're there with them, you pay attention to them and you listen to them. You let them be heard and you let them feel loved. So next time on the Single Parent Podcast, thank you again for joining me. If you want to change course in your parenting, just know that you can. It is very possible. Hit me up if you want any tips, you just want to talk, share experiences. Thank you again for tuning in, everyone. I love you so much. Till next time, thank you for watching the Single Parent Podcast.